Hey, Queen. I'm Vieira Miles, and this is the Holistic Sister Circle podcast, a show where we hear the stories of soulful women all over the world dedicated to sharing insight into why holistic health is the future and what women should do today to ensure they have the necessary tools and resources to bring out their inner royal roots, assess their body, and remedy any illness from the comfort of their home. Y'all, we are setting the royal record straight, okay? If you'd like to connect with us further, you can follow us at The Holistic Sister Circle on Instagram and join the Holistic Sister Circle Facebook group for live interviews, collaborative Q&A, and exclusive training on how to build your wellness dream team. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. See you on the other side. Welcome to another episode of the Holistic Sister Circle. Today we have Melanie Bonk with us, and she is a sexpert and tantric mystic. She is here to help you bonk better. She is a certified somatic sexuality, love, and relationship coach, a wife, and a mama. She guides couples and individuals in leveling up their play, passion, and pleasure with embodied empowerment and sacred lovemaking. Melanie, this is going to be so fun. Welcome.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, this is such an incredible topic because honestly, we just don't talk about it enough. And I think for most couples, especially if you've been together 2, 4, 5, 10 plus years, you got to change it up.
Yeah.
You got to add some different types of spices in there. So one, I would love for you to first start off and share with us, why sexual relationships? Like how did you get started here?
Yes, thank you. Well, my family history, my family legacy is really rooted in traumatic divorce. My grandparents divorced in the 60s, my parents divorced in the 80s. And when I came together with my partner 25 years ago now, I had a little bit of an awakening and a consciousness around partnership, and I knew what I wanted. And I had very real role models for what I didn't want. So for me, I began diving into the science behind what makes a thriving partnership, what makes a passionate partnership last. And throughout the years, I kind of became the go-to person in my inner circle for relationship advice, for sex advice. I was the person who always would talk about sex. We could be talking about the weather and I'd be like, okay, so I had this orgasm. So I actually found a training program, a trauma-based training program, which is so important, especially talking about sex, love, and relationship, because we are all carrying trauma when it comes to our pleasure, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to love, and having the tools to really help folks move through trauma in a gentle, safe manner is just amazing. And I'm a somatic coach, so I'm always working with what's in the body, which is so much different than, like, let's just say talk therapy. Where talk therapy, you're in your cortex thinking, and with somatic work, it's really top to bottom, bottom to up, and we're using the whole body. So you're lighting up every single aspect of your brain, from the cortical part to the limbic feeling part to the primal part. So it's very rapid transformation and liberation into what it is that you see true. So it's a big, long-winded explanation, but really my motivation in this work was because I didn't want certain things. I didn't want divorce. I didn't want to break up a family. The things that I witnessed when I was a child.
I love that. Thank you for just taking, you literally dissected your family tree. And you're like, okay, this worked, this didn't work, not doing that. I love that. And then you literally came up with your own method of how you would want to do things.
Mm-hmm.
When you were going through that journey, what were some things that honestly came up that you wanted to make sure were just a priority in your relationship moving forward?
Well, pleasure was definitely one. I grew up in an actually very sexually empowering household. My mom was very open with the joys of pleasure and with experiences that she's had, and she shared that with me. So I always had kind of that, like, oh, I really want this. And there's kind of like that energy around sex and yummy and juiciness. But then there's also, I had to recognize where my wounding was, where my little girl would show up in relationship. And so often, our inner children, the ones who were neglected, the ones who didn't receive the love that they deserved, the ones who were abused and harmed, they really only get triggered on this level in romantic partnership. So becoming conscious of my triggering and my wounds in relationship, I mean, that took like a decade and a half. And so there was years where our inner children were like running our lives. And now that we've stepped up into our kingdom and queendom, it's like a whole nother playing field.
I love this. And how did the somatic work help in this perspective? And just can you just share a little bit too, like what somatic work is?
Yeah, thank you. So somatic work is, like I said, it's in the body. So often we're in thought, in story. And when you think about it, thoughts are really made up, right? They are nothing. But yet our thoughts can control so much of how we behave, how we react, how we respond to conflict. So somatically, and really learning the skills that I call soulful communication, bring it into a whole body experience. So rooting into your body. So listening from your heart space, for instance, being present with womb space for me is such a priority, especially when I'm with my kids. If I'm in my head over processing and overthinking, I feel like I'm disconnected from my intuition. I'm disconnected from my power. But when I'm somatically connected to the sensation in my womb, then I'm tapped into her wisdom, her power, this like portal of ancestral wealth that is like at our fingertips. But you have to be conscious of that. You have to create new patterns of safety in your body to be able to feel into your body. So that's really the very first steps that I work with in all my clients, no matter their sexual orientation, is feeling safe in your body. Because so often we feel unsafe feeling the sensations alive.
This is really good. I'm literally have so many questions in my head as you're talking as well. Now, okay, we know a little bit more about somatic work. We know how it plays a part just within sexuality. We understand that this is something that it should be enjoyable, it should be pleasurable, it should be fun. Let's get into a little bit of the kinky side of things, right? I think one of the things that have really come across with so many people that I've talked to, and I don't know if this is the case for you, but the same really after the children and after the other priorities and working and all these different things, we tend to neglect this part of our lives. And, I've learned as well where some couples, they literally don't prioritize it to the point where they're almost basically roommates.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure, there's a lot of couples that are out there go through this phase. What are some things that you would recommend that couples should do to not just get out of the phase, but also make it a priority with the daily life, with the hustle, with the children, with all the things that are going on, but making sure that this is a priority?
Well, first, I want to invite every couple that might be like really resonating with what you're saying, like, oh shit, that's me. We're totally in the roommate phase. First of all, meet yourself with compassion, because of course that happens, right? It's totally natural for that kind of phase and that priority shift to happen. So first, meet yourself with grace and compassion and know that that's perfectly normal. And then from there, you can start to create more energy, more input into the creation of your erotic energy. So that can look like it can be so simple as just to talking about sex, not even bringing it onto the table, but just starting to create conversation. And when you create conversation, it's really tricky to not cross a line over, this isn't happening for me. You don't do this anymore. Like feel the kind of like energetic vibe that has, like that right away that your partner is going to be like, I'm doing something wrong. I'm not meeting their needs, as opposed to the conversation that you could create is, I desire to kind of like make out with clothes on for a little while. I desire for you to just grab me and plant a big fat kiss on me. I desire to feel new sensations across my whole body. So really creating that conversation with what it is that you desire, which for a lot of women in particular, that's a whole new conversation that you probably need to have with yourself as well. Because how often do we actually think about what we desire? Women, we're so trained to be the caregivers and to just be giving, giving, giving. And this is totally a selfish act of thinking about what it is I want to experience. And so even beginning to unwire or infuse the fact that it's okay to be selfish. It's okay to give yourself the things that you need. And then it's okay to start to get curious about what those desires are.
This is really interesting because even my partner and I, we talk about this a lot. And just recently, I have a friend. Her and her husband have also been married for 25 years. And she literally, like, the way that she talks about him, it's almost as if they're just like little children. And I was asking her, what are some of the things that you've done just to continue to keep the spice alive in your relationship? And she's like, honestly, we really focus on meeting each other where we're at and having fun.
Yeah.
Because she was saying that, like, when it feels like a chore or it feels forced and you're not putting your own like quirkiness into it, or if you're a nerd, like, it's okay, but using the things that you already have that just make you you and having fun with it, it takes the pressure off and allows both of you all to be willing participants and really enjoy the experience. And one of the things that she had recommended was scripts. She's like, if you're not someone who just automatically could just like talk, just talk
Mm-hmm.
sexy to me, things like that. She was like, sometimes it might be a little awkward. So I'll give you an example. She was telling me, she's like, yeah, there was one time, when we first, like the first like 10 years in, she's like, I would say like, okay, like, just talk dirty to me, like just smack it, all these things. And he's like, I don't know what to say. And she was like, oh my gosh, you're just ruining the moment. So she was like, one of the things, like, because she was more of the aggressor.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, one of the things that she had to learn was that was just not his comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
But he was willing and he had the desire to learn and he did it in his own way. And they started doing scripts and it got him in the mode of like, calling her randomly in the middle of the day, like, what are you wearing? And that opened up the conversation a little bit more for them to explore. So anyway, I share that story because I think it's so relatable to what we're talking about now. But, for those people who just don't know where to start, I mean, because like I said, my partner and I talk about it all the time as far as like, for me, I have the habit of just like, it's almost honestly like the last thing I think about. And he's like, okay, well, what are some things that you can do for yourself to at least put yourself in a position to feel like sexy and actually want it in that way? And he's like, I just want you to have the willingness and the desire to even just go take some sensual classes, like go learn how to, I don't know, get on a pole or lap dance or just something to kind of get you in the mood or in the motion so we can have the conversations and it's like top of mind. So that was something else I wanted to bring to your attention and share and, ask you as well. What are some other things, just like some practical steps after the initial conversation that women can do to just keep it going?
Well, first, I love that. Thank you for sharing. I love exactly what you said, like, and his recommendation, and it's really connecting not to your sexuality, but that's connecting to your sensuality. And so first, understanding that those are two different things, sexuality and sensuality. And for a woman, we need to feel our sensuality alive inside of us. So one, one thing that I do that I recommend to all my clients, and eventually it becomes play work because my clients get play work. It's so much more fun than homework. And that's sensual dancing. And that is where we are, as women, we're moving our bodies to whatever sound, whatever music you want that turns you on, but you're doing it alone. You're doing it for you. You're allowing the full liberation of your body to move. And it's not performative. That creates such freedom in our body. And it connects us right away to some of the holistic sex tools that I also teach. And that's movement, that's breathing. So as you're dancing, you can breathe right into pussy, and you can just imagine that air is entering into your body, traveling down your spine and filling up your pelvic bowl. So simple things. And as a mother of 4 kids, as a wife of 25 years, I have to meet myself with pleasure first every day. And it's such a difference between how I show up for the kids. It makes such a difference in how I show up for work, such a difference in how I show up as a wife. So if I meet myself with pleasure, and it doesn't need to be a huge, long pleasure practice, which I love those as well. But if it's just like that sensual dance where I'm dancing and it lasts 2 minutes, but it's the first thing I do in the morning. Or what I always do every morning is I touch my naked body. I touch my skin. And every time I do that, I start to rewire what it is for me to be sensual, what it is for me to feel that sexy, that fiery, that vixen inside. And, that's really working on removing the conditioning that we've all been taught, that I have stretch marks, I have scars, I've had babies. And so when I meet myself in that environment, even looking in the mirror as I rub my breasts, that is training my body, and it's awakening the sensuality that is inside of me and really charging up our erotic energy. So I would say, if I could give one piece of advice to every woman, it would be, first and foremost, the minute you wake up, you meet yourself with pleasure. You are in control and responsible for your pleasure. It's not anybody else's responsibility. And that's the same for orgasm. So it's like there were so many. I definitely know that in the past I have, my partner didn't make me come. No, it's my responsibility to have an orgasm.
Oh my gosh. So this is really interesting. I'm so glad that you brought the topic up of like stretch marks and babies, because one of the things that I was going to ask, like, I've interviewed so many women, I've talked to so many women, especially those who, and even from a yoga practice perspective, like I have just taught like women and things like that in this practice. And a lot of them, again, have had children. They are not as small as they used to be or they once were. And they're trying to get back in shape, trying to feel, sexy and things like that. Some of them may have come from miscarriages, and just that emotional connection isn't always there, which ruins the experience for yourself and for your partner, to be honest with you, regardless if it's just touching yourself from a movement perspective in a sensual dance, or it's actually that physical contact. What are some things that you've learned or just you've seen just like in your program with women who are having a challenge bringing in the emotional piece to whatever they're doing, regardless if it's, obviously it's going to start with them as the individual. So we can start there, but yeah, what does that look like, and how have they really been able to overcome that challenge?
The first step that I take any client through and groups through is opening up the heart space, opening up and connecting to this unconditional love that lives at our heart. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned through Tantra is that we as individuals are the only ones that can love ourselves unconditionally. And like, at first I was like, oh, that's bullshit. My husband loves me unconditionally. And then I was like, oh no, he has conditions. I'm raising my kids to have boundaries and conditions as well. If I don't treat them well, I don't want them showing up as a wet blanket. So it's almost like this aha moment where you're like, oh shit, I am the only one on the whole planet that can love me absolutely unconditionally. And then it's really tapping into what that looks like for each person. and how you can meet yourself with compassion, how you can meet yourself from that loving state, how you can meet the inner critic, because that's really all that's who's there in our minds telling us, oh, you don't look good in that outfit, look at your stretch marks. That's an inner critic, and that inner critic is fueled by culture, fueled by the patriarchy, fueled by so many different things, fueled by religion and our families and how we're brought up. So when you also become conscious of that, if you're connected to your heart space, you're really feeling that embodiment, and then you hear those voices come up, you can start to play with the inner critic. It's, you can kind of create this like back and forth partnership with that inner critic and with that subpersonality. Oh, okay, I hear you, inner critic. I hear you saying that about my thighs right now, but let me tell you what these thighs can do. And it's having that connection and that playful relationship with the conditioning that we all have, and knowing, like I said at the beginning, the conditioning, our thoughts are created by society, and they're really nothing. It's really fake. I know it feels so heavy, and it feels so heavy in the body, but when you kind of put that lens on it, is like, oh, this is a bunch of bullshit passed down generation after generation. I don't need to subscribe to that anymore.
Yeah. No, I love that analogy of it. And I think too, one of the things that has really been beneficial, at least for us in this season, is being around people who have very successful marriages and who have been married for years. And I'm not just saying like a couple of years, but in your case, like 25 years, and they've gone through different decades, literally, of stages of life and in their relationship together, but also as individuals. For those who are looking to potentially connect with other couples, maybe because they've come from broken families, they don't really have an opportunity to connect with other individuals who are like-minded or who they can really ask advice for. What were some of the things that you did, maybe in the early stages, where you're like, okay, these are the things that we want, but I also want to make sure that we are surrounding ourselves with like-minded people as well?
I think the biggest couple that was an inspiration to us was an older couple. And I like to say that, like, they're family members that we have adopted, or that now they can't get rid of us because we're in their lives, and they're in their 60s, and they really are a role model for my husband and I. And we have an intimate relationship with them. They know what's happening in our lives. They know what's happening with our kids, as well as we're there for them anytime they need anything. And it's seeing a couple. For me, it was definitely seeing a couple that's older, that is still passionate, that has the kisses, has the sensuality, has all the things that I want to see in our relationship as a role model. So just like you said, it's finding those couples, but for me, I get the most out of it from the couples that are older. So I was actually at a gym, and an older woman talked about having sex, and I'm like, okay, so you still have sex in your 60s. I mean, there's a little part of me that's in the back of my mind that's like, oh, once you get a certain age, it's just going to stop. And she's like, oh, that is nonsense. And I'm like, yes, thank you for that permission slip.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, because I mean, I think that I think that way just within all areas of your life. I think it's just so important to have people in your corner that are seasoned and they've been around for, again, multiple decades, and they're able to share different aspects with you. Just so you just like, okay, I'm not crazy here. Like, this is a thing. Like, this actually happened, and let's talk it through, and let's get better at this. So this is really great, and I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to share this today. Now, if anyone wanted to talk to you further, whether it's individual, whether it's a couple, can you just share what those steps look like and how they can connect with you?
Yes, excellent. You can visit my website. It's www.melaniebonk.com. And on that website, you can kind of get a little bit more of a history about me, the training that I've done. You can also download a bunch of free resources, and the resources are for everybody. So there's quite a few practices that are literally for everybody. Then there's some really specific ones. So one's connecting females to their sensuality. One is a testicle massage for men that increases testosterone naturally. So there's all kinds of fun goodies that you can come download. You can follow me on the Instagram at Bonk Better. And I'm shadow banned because I say words like pussy and orgasm. So please follow me. Send me to all of your friends because it is a slow growth when you are in the band of the shadow.
Oh, yeah, it is. So, yeah, we'll definitely do that. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was amazing.
Yes.
Queen, thank you so much for tuning in. It truly warms our heart that you're taking the time out of your day to connect with us. If you'd like to connect with our guests further, you can find their information located in the description section of this episode. And if you found this episode helpful, share with another queen. And don't forget to connect with the Holistic Sister Circle on Instagram and Facebook. And until next week, stay blessed. Mwah.